In a crazy world like we have today where everything's changing, everything's revolving, everything's cycling, it's hard to be the best at anything. Someone's always trying to do you one better. Are you the best at what you can control? Maybe that's the best we can hope for. We're going to talk about that next with Paul Talbert on Purpose Under Pressure. Well, welcome back. My name is Bryan, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under pressure. It's brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida, where I'd like to be right about now. Also in Capital Region, New York. They do their work on purpose so you and your team can represent that way. If your people are out there setting expectations, making deals, building relationships, isn't that the way you want it done, the way you want it done, on purpose, reflective of you, reflective of your leadership style and of your culture? That's why we love Sandler by the Ruby Group. That's what they do. So you should connect with them online. It's easy to do, and it'll probably be the best thing you do. Whether you buy anything or not, I like to say, if you talk to those guys, you're coming away with something. So reach out. They are at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, developing stronger sales teams for tougher conversations. Now, folks, let's get cooking. I've done this show. I've done Purpose Under Pressure for 3 years, Dash of Grit before that for 3 years before that. And I will tell you now that every single one of those conversations that I had, I was able to learn something new about a different business that I didn't understand. Now we're a little more focused into sales. And as much as I loved that, I am just thrilled to death to talk about sales with other salespeople who have been in the trenches, who are getting it done, who know the struggles, know the pressures, but also know the joys of the career of being a seller. And that's what this show is all about. The reason I tell you all this is because I know that's what today is going to be about. And I'm excited to introduce you to Paul Talbert. He's Vice President of Sales with Approved Freight. They provide ocean and air freight, logistics, warehousing, road transport, folks, all the things that I don't understand. I've said it before. I don't know how the shelves get full. I don't know how there's always enough milk for everybody. I don't know how things get from China to here in time. I don't get it, but these guys do, and I'm excited to talk about it. Paul Talbert, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thanks, Bryan. Glad to be here.
I'm really glad you're here too, and I just set it up. I have no idea how logistics works, but can you tell me a little bit more about Approved Freight, what you guys are doing, what you're all about, why you do what you do, and we're going to dig in.
Absolutely. So Approved Freight, who are we? We are Jones Act experts. What is a Jones Act? That is delivering to the locations of Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii, and Guam. So those 4 different locations can only be served by a U.S. Made vessel and a U.S. crew. And so what we do is we provide consolidation services to those locations. So Bryan, if you manufactured a widget and you had just one pallet of a widget that you wanted to send to Hawaii, you'd either have to go directly to the steamship line and get a whole container for yourself, and now you're just putting one pallet in there and you've got all this extra space, or you can send it to a consolidator like us. And what we do is then we take your pallet and we put it in there with other people's freight stuff, and we pack it in there kind of like Tetris, and we maximize that container, the revenue in that container, and then we ship it over to the location, which the 4 locations I mentioned, and then we take that container, take it from the port, take it to a deconsolidation warehouse, meaning we unload it all basically, and then we deliver it to your customer. That's as simple as I can get for those 4 locations. Outside of that, we do international air and ocean. So if it's originating in the Asia markets or India, anywhere today, Turkey, we can do those ocean and air. We do have warehousing and distribution here in Los Angeles, where I'm located. And then we have transportation. So we have an asset-based trucking company, Approved Trucking, that does local Southern California P&D and a lot of dray work going to and back from the ports. And then we have a non-asset-based brokerage. And so what that does is they don't own trucks or anything. They can just move freight, and they're the middleman between the carrier and the shipper. And that's what they do. So what we really do, Bryan, is we just we move freight. That's what we do. We figure out the best way possible.
But you're very specific on it. I had not heard of the Jones Act. Is that fairly new? In fact, let me ask it this way. All the different things that you do, they're very specific. Have you always done those things, or did you grow into that as the world has changed?
Great question. So I've been at Approved for almost 4 years. Approved was started, so we're owned by the DeWitt companies, and the DeWitt companies as a whole is almost 100 years old. So it's pretty
Okay.
cool. Started in 1927, and the majority of the other companies under the DeWitt umbrella, they're household good movers. And so we set up in Hawaii and Guam 40 plus years ago as household good movers. And then there was a small company called Approved in California that was trying to move freight to Hawaii. And I wasn't here back then, but the different stories I've heard is, hey, we've got a delivery company here in Hawaii that can deliver stuff. Let's partner with a company in California. And so everything that we have done is really just a value add. So, for example, the non-asset based brokerage. If you had a pallet and you're in Ohio and your manufacturing plant was in Ohio and you said, I got to get this to Hawaii, we'd say, great, get it to our dock here in City of Industry. We'll consolidate it like we mentioned. We'll get it to Hawaii. And if you came to me and said, well, I don't know how to get my pallet from Ohio to you, then our brokerage was born. It was like, okay,
I
we can
see.
go and find a carrier to get it from you to us, and then we'll figure that out. Um, our trucking company was formed primarily because we do a lot of dray work. And instead of giving it to another carrier, why not do that ourselves? And then we have a lot of local Southern California shippers that are shipping stuff to Hawaii and Guam and all around the world. Well, let's just go pick that up on our own truck.
Yeah.
And so finding those synergies is how each one of these things has grown. Our warehousing, we've got 110,000 square feet here in the City of Industry. And again, 4 years ago, it was really just a cross dock for our Hawaii and Guam business, and we did some warehousing, as needed. But then COVID happened, the market changed, the warehousing changed, and our storage rate increased dramatically because of just where the market was at the time. Where that forced us to change the way we looked at our warehouse and turn it into a distribution center. So we had to go out and we had to put in some racking and find some long-term warehousing customers.
So that really leads me into the next, that's kind of where I wanted to go. I'm glad we're talking about change because you're, as a sales team, you're charged with going out and finding businesses, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
and starting relationships for people that need to get these things where they need to get them on time, safe, inexpensive, or at least efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, the world changes lately, like by the day. And even today, as we speak, we had an international incident, for the lack of better words, in Iran this
Mm-hmm.
weekend.
Yep.
Things have to just really affect quickly. How do you manage change? We'll talk about sales a little bit, but I'm interested in the actual delivery part. How do you make sure your customers are always satisfied given all the change that you must be dealing with?
Whoa, Brian, that's a good
Is that a
question.
big one?
Eight
Do we
a.m.
need
on
another podcast for this?
well at 8 a.m. on a Monday. That's a good one. No, I think the biggest thing for us, Brian, is always going to be let's be the best at controlling the controllables.
I
There's a
love
lot of
that.
things outside of our purview that we can't really control. And how do we do that? What are those things? A lot of those things are we're focused on proactive communication. It's our brand promise that we've developed over the past year is handling your shipment from you know end to end or A to B or whatever you want to call it. But really for us is the only way we can manage through changes is just um, being the best at really doing what we can to control the controllables, and then the things that are of our outside of our window, I guess, is just we gotta be able to adjust and be flexible to those. Um, but managing the things that we can make an impact on, communication is going to be huge. Um, Being easy to do business with, all of those things, but just being the best at controlling what we can't, what is in our grasp, I guess.
Yeah. And that's sometimes hard for a seller, isn't it? Is to know that there's things that I can't control. There's people at your level who are
Mm-hmm.
trying to control it, and
Yep.
sellers are just doing the best they can, and a lot of things are out of their hands. So let's talk a little bit about the pressures that you
Okay.
go through as a company, as a vice president of sales, making sure your team is selling properly, is equipped properly, making sure that the right culture is there, because it's got to be difficult on a seller there.
Oh boy. Yeah, culture is probably the biggest driver for us. Brian, I we have a growth strategy, and we're part of this EOS leadership traction thing that we're
Yeah.
doing as a
Hmm.
company, and a lot of that is giving us direction and kind of an end goal of what getting everybody on the bus and everyone rowing and going in the same direction. Um, but there's a fine line between culture and pressure. I think in what really when it comes to sales. For example, I'm a big proponent of being as transparent as possible. I mean, transparent commission plan and commission structure. We have it now to where our sales team can basically each quarter tells me, hey, I've earned this much commission. You can track it through a BI tool that we have. You can see how your customers are doing. You can see how they're operating month over month and year over year. And when I think about strong culture, I think about enjoying what you do, feeling heard, getting the support from leadership, um, having opinions, wanting to come to work on a Sunday night and a Monday morning, right? We've all seen the things. But then when holding people accountable, when you have that pressure of, hey, Bryan, you're doing a great job. You're doing a lot of the things that we're asking you to, but we're not seeing the prospecting, or we're not seeing you. We're a big Sandler house too. You're not doing your cookbook. Again, that's a big thing. That's where I kind of stuttered there for a second, because culture
Yeah.
is one thing. You know, when you work I know when you work for me, I'm all in. I want you to succeed. Your success is our success. All those things. But there is that fine line of, hey, I want you to succeed, and we need you to succeed faster. Or what? Let's figure out why you're not succeeding. And I've seen that kind of come back and bite me a little bit, because there's being nice, and there's being supportive, and then there's being um, I don't know, not taking advantage of it. It's just there's that fine line of holding people accountable. And having that strong culture. So,
Can you give me an example of that? And the reason I say that is that I just did a podcast here recently. We were talking about salespeople always wanting to do better. Like there's Sandler sales
hmm
training. There's so many
hmm
different trainings. There's conferences. There's books. There's
right.
podcasts. I can't think of another industry. And I thought about it later. Maybe like educators. Things that I just constantly want to do more to be better at my skill. And I
hmm
said that an accountant is a great accountant, but they're
hmm
not trying to be a better accountant.
hmm
But salespeople put so much pressure on themselves,
Yeah.
and sometimes we sit back on our butts because everything's falling apart. Can you give me some examples of when things aren't going well and how you're able to motivate your sales team to actually accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish as a company?
Yeah. I think the best way is to try to oversimplify everything. Again, there is a lot of, I got to fill out my cookbook. I got to call these customers. I got to fill up my funnel. I've got to make sure that I've got these leads. Am I servicing my existing accounts? Am I
Yeah.
doing all the things? And when those things happen, I'll just say, hey, let's simplify it. Let's look at who you're prospecting, and what do we know, what don't we know. And oversimplifying it to me is, are we curious? Do we know everything about them? Do we know everything about these prospects? Do we know where are we at? Let's just go back to the basics and forget about all this other fluff stuff. Let's just go back to
Yeah.
the basics. That's the only way I know to do it, is just to oversimplify it. And then a lot of them could be one-on-one conversations about. I actually really enjoy when somebody calls me up on a Monday and says, Paul, I'm not feeling it today. I've had a rough weekend, or whatever the situation may be. I get it. Let's recharge our batteries. Let's figure out. Let's go into the CRM and let's look and see what we can do. Instead of someone that just kind of packs it in for the day and doesn't do much, because there's a lot of autonomy and a
Fakes
lot
it.
of freedom in sales, that we
Yeah,
have.
there is.
So let's just simplify it. Let's get back to basics, and see what's working and then what's not working, and let's kind of walk through it. Try to be relatable. We all struggle. We've got inside sales teams now that I tell them, you're way better at that than I am. I've never been a good inside salesperson. I'm okay when I get in front of somebody, but calling someone on the phone that I don't know, let's talk through that. And then sometimes that I don't know, maybe it makes them feel better to say, oh man, okay, I'm not the only one struggling. Just kind of be relatable. So
I
that's
think
it.
different I think different product lines require different abilities, and I'm interested. You have inside sales, you have outside sales, you've been doing it for many years. There's a lot of change. If you could think of your favorite best seller and you think of their qualities, what
Mm-hmm.
makes them good, if you could duplicate them 10 times and all of a sudden you've got
Mm-hmm.
an all-star staff, what are some of those qualities that are going to help you do your job best
Yep.
at approved freight?
Oh, I can think of someone in my, and I was told not to bring up names, so I won't, but I can think of someone right now, relentless, curious,
Relentless.
collaborative, competitive, um, driven, um, motivated, and motivated by not only just money, because, and I know it's, I'll interview, what motivates you? Ah, my wife and kids, great, love that, so am I. But most people are in sales because they want to control their income. So
That's
I
right.
want to hear that you're motivated by money. But those are that's if you're that's the biggest that those are the qualities I look for that are really helpful. The biggest thing, Brian, is just be curious. Know why. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to find out what's going on. And that's a big thing with Sandler. That's why I love Sandler so much. Is when you uncover a pain or a pain point and you go, wow, you bring that up, it's the second time you brought that up, can we dig into that a little bit? Why is that so painful? Why is that so, and you use those emotional words. That's what we were talking about going to my first boot camp ever. That's when I kept raising my hand going, oh, that happens to me all the time. And learning, if you're really a good active listener and you can sit back and just be curious, you can get a lot of things solved. And I think the best salespeople that are curious can do two things. They can qualify, but even more importantly, they can disqualify an opportunity. That way, if you disqualify something that's not real, or you're not wasting resources, or you're not wasting time and money and all those things going after something that's not real. But if you can do those things, I think you're going to be ahead of the game.
I love the word relentless. I think that's just, you just got to keep going and
Oh
you
yeah,
can't take it personally. You just got to keep, and
yep,
that doesn't mean high pressure. That doesn't
right,
mean relentless on the same person.
right.
It just means that I'm not going to quit until I've accomplished what I'm here to accomplish. So that's a good salesperson. Paul, I'm interested, if you don't mind, share with me where you could improve as a leader
hmm
if you could only maybe do a better job at this or this in helping your team succeed.
Looking at the typical salesperson, everything they do day in and day out, if we simplify all of that and really boil it down, they have two superpowers. First superpower that salespeople have is how they behave. Second superpower they have is what they say. As a seller, we only have two problems. We either said something or did something that we should not have said or done, or we didn't say something or do something that we should have said or done.
Paul, I'm interested, if you don't mind, share with me where you could improve as a leader
hmm
if you could only maybe do a better job at this or this in helping your team succeed.
Brian, that's something. It's funny. I report to our CEO and president, and he kind of laughs at me sometimes because I say every day when I leave work, I replay every conversation in my head, every interaction within the office, every Teams call. I'll look back at notes, and I'm always trying to figure out what did I do right, and then what can I improve on. Not what I did wrong, but what can I improve on. For me as a leader, Brian, I think it's constantly trying to make sure that we have a key differentiator in the market. There's lots of companies that do what we do. They're all
Mhm.
great competitors. They do a great job delivering to the Jones Act. Um, but what is going to differentiate us? And that's it. And when we fill those things out, or we finally we narrow down what differentiates us, is arming the sales team with that so they can go out into the market and really start to talk about, when they're putting their 30-second commercial together. Um, those are things that we bring up as those case studies. Hey, this is why customers use us. Is typically they're frustrated by this, and we're going through it. But you got to have a differentiator in there, and you got to bring up something that's going to be relatable and potentially a challenge or a pain point with the customer. And that's my biggest challenge is we have to reinvent ourselves every single day, every week, every month. The world, like you mentioned earlier, the world is changing. We've got AI, we've got tools, every time I turn around, there's some tool that's going to make me a better salesperson, better sales leader, more organized. So it's just constantly trying to reinvent myself and make sure the team is doing the same. But it's making sure that we know and I provide what differentiates us from our competitors.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that's the toughest part of it. It's going to be my next question. It's more of a commodity, right? I mean, what you do is done by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so people can compare directly one to another services and make their best choice.
Yep.
And quite often, if the differentiator isn't set, they're going to go with the lowest price, or at least the perceived best value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very difficult to differentiate yourself. I'm in marketing, and I ask people, hey, what makes you different than the other widget guy?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say things like, well, it's my people, or it's I've been here for 60 years, or and I say, yeah, but they can say that too, right? And they're not lying. At least they don't think they are. So how do you identify those differentiators, and how, maybe even more important, how do you convey that to the salespeople in a way that it makes sense to them and matters to them, so that they don't climb onto that race to the bottom and just sell price like a lot of commodity salespeople will?
All right, I'll go back to culture. I think when you've got a sales team that feels the support, the guidance, the mentorship, they have the tools to succeed every day. They have the visibility and the transparency of what's going on with their accounts. They have the transparency of how they're doing against their quota every single day. That's all part of it. And then when they call into the office, they need help. Are they calling happy employees and happy teammates within our office? Or are they calling someone that's annoyed or irritated or have you? I think it's all part of it. I think that if you call into anybody in our building or anybody that's remote, you should get the same exact experience as anybody calling our company. And you should get the understanding of, I love my job, or I really like it. And I'm here to help you. How can I help you? And you're not a burden. You're not a thing. So I think culture is one of the biggest things. But the other way we can find differentiators is being curious, finding out what are our competitors not doing that our prospects wish they would. A lot of that for us is boiled down to technology. When I first got to Approved, we use CargoWise as a global TMS. It's a great tool, but technology wasn't really our thing. We have a lot of manual processes and a lot of, which means sometimes it takes longer to respond to a customer, but accurate, but just takes a little bit longer on things. And we've got to speed those things up. And so we've leveraged technology, and I think that's going to be the one thing that's that will differentiate us in the market. But Bryan, it's got to be how we respond at every situation. How do we diffuse conflict? And how do you feel when you call us as a customer? Are we easy to do business with? Are we the easy button for you? That's what our goal is.
Yeah, I think in my experience, the easiest differentiator is that no one else has a Paul Talbert. No one else has a Bryan Lefelhoc.
Sure.
We all might do the same things, but no one's going to do it like me.
Sure.
And I remember Will Smith, and he was talking about out racing somebody on a treadmill. And he says, I might die first, but you're not going to beat me.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a cool way of saying it. And I think it relates to sales a little bit. Like, I'm going to give you everything I have. Someone might do it as well, but no one's going to beat me at being good to you or pervading that culture to people and kind of making that infectious.
Yeah, and I don't think you can be that way in sales unless you really believe the product that you're and the service that you're selling, and you believe the company that you're working for, and you feel like you've got the trust from your sales leadership. I think there's a lot of things there. I think you can believe in the company because you think the company's great because they're paying you a lot of money or whatever the situation, but maybe you don't believe in the service or product because it's failed. Maybe you don't understand sales leadership because there's no connection. You're not going to give it 100%. You're not going to have that Will Smith attitude. You're not going to have that. But if you have all of those things, that's where the that's where the gold is. That's where if you can figure that, and to figure that out, Bryan, that's my biggest challenge, right?
That's it.
You got a lot of things. I think we provide an unbelievable service, especially to the Jones Act. We're experts. We got experts and boots on the ground everywhere, and I believe what we do is we really take care of your freight. Um, what we're really working on is proactive communication. I want to tell Bryan what's going on with his shipment before Bryan asks me what's going on with his shipment. I want you to know that before that. And then what that does is it gives the sales team that confidence to go, man, we really are taking care of your customer, our customer's freight, and feel good about selling that. And then when you're out there talking to new prospects, go, hey, let me tell you about a situation where Bryan didn't know what was going on in his freight until we reached out to him and told him that it was delayed or there was a damage or whatever. And you know what? That allowed Bryan to call his customer and say and get ahead of all these things instead of. And how does that relate to you? Did you ever come across that? I mean, so there's so many little things that add up that can really help the sales team. But it's all going to start with the culture, our process, being easy to do business with. All of those things I think are important.
So I might have saved the biggest question for the end, which is a rookie move on a host here, but I got to ask you a big one. The world is changing again so fast, and I'm interested in the future. I know the economy drives what you do. I know COVID shut down logistics and then powered it through a resurgence. I mean, there's so many different things that can become pressure for you. What's on the horizon? What are you looking at that's going to cause some hurdles that you're going to have to overcome to stay on top?
It's just that Bryan. It's the world is changing every single day. Technology is changing. Like I said, there are tools out there that can help you be faster and more accurate. I think it's just being on the edge of what's happening in our space, and then being on the edge of what does the customer really expect, and what's that experience really look like. And again, that could change. Something that's important to them today might not have been important to them a month ago or 2 years ago or whenever the last time we were in there. So it's finding that out, but we have to consistently evolve, not only just as people, Bryan, but as salespeople, sales leaders within our company. I can tell you, I joined approved July of 2022. We're not even close to the same company we were when I started this company.
That fast, that quick of a cycle.
It is.
Wow.
We've got. Again, when I remember back walking through our building, meeting the team, and when I walk in the office, when I'm in the office, just completely different. The mindset's different. The goals are different. Everyone is speaking the same language. Number one, first thing we did is we brought in Sandler. I said, hey, when was the last time we had sales training? I read a book one time, and and so on and so forth. But which is all. It's most 98.
That's it.
I don't know most people. That's what they say. Yeah. I was like, man, I met these guys at Sandler. We got to bring them in. Did that. Something that our corporate at the corporate level we did was bring in EOS traction. Which I think is really helped us all get on the same page. We're just constantly evolving, and I think it was at a Sandler event where they said that they showed the guy from the New York Times. And help me if this was Sandler. I think it was in the 90s. There was an article that said no one is going to be reading the news on the internet, and we had to redact it. Was that a Sandler thing? It was at a conference. They had to redact it because he's like, no one's going to adopt the internet. I think that's where we're at with AI. If you are late to the game in AI to figure out how this can really help your business, and enhance it, I think you are going to be late to the game. And so we're trying to figure that out now, and where number one, the safety measures, a lot of company information, a lot of, revenue and all that stuff out there. So how do we partner with the right thing? When is it the right time to really step into that space? So we're looking at all those avenues. And again, we're leveraging technology because we've got to evolve. Number one, we've got to be faster to the customer. That's the expectation. We've got to put things in their hands that they can do a lot of the work themselves online and give them the tools. And then we've got to make things easier and take the manual process out. And so if you're a larger company, you don't want to send an email that, hey, I've got 100 emails because you have 100 shipments. Let's do some integration with your ERP and let's simplify it, because I think corporations now too, they're doing more with less. And so when you have less people at a company, you can't keep adding hats to them, and you want to make their job easier. So But that's our biggest thing is how do we evolve, Brian? And we've thought about this for the last 4 years. I believe we approved are on the cutting edge of that, and I think we're ahead of the game in a lot of ways. It took a long time to get to this point, but now I'm very confident of where we're at, and I think we're setting ourselves up for the future with that.
You're doing the right thing, and I think one of the great things about this show, whether people are in the logistics or they're selling candles in their house,
Same.
the issues are the same. How can I stay on top? How can I out deliver? How can I build the right culture? How can I deliver excellence?
Yep.
And I think it doesn't change. What does change is that some people just kind of wash their hands of it and give up and say, "I'm good enough."
Yep.
And that's the first slide
Yep.
down. Last question, Paul. What type of business? What kind of business is having what kind of a problem that they would benefit themselves by calling someone like you, or even someone that does business the same way you do, to help them to succeed? And then how would they find you?
Right. Really, if I just focus on the Jones Act, so if you're a manufacturer or distributor and you're delivering, you have customers in those locations, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Guam, Alaska, and whether you've been doing it the same way the entire time you broke into those markets or you're looking for a new way, it never hurts to have a conversation to figure out how are we doing, how are we impacting customers, because I don't know. And again, I don't know what other people struggle with. I know what people the customers that we are fortunate enough to help and work with and team up with. But it would be, hey, if you're struggling, or not even if you're struggling, if you just like to learn more about our company so that we can learn more about you, I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with the current tariff situation and where you're sourcing your goods from the different international origins, and you're just looking, you want to look for another option, we'd love to chat with you. If you have a lot of just-in-time freight that's got to move by air, whether it's going to any of those 4 locations in the Jones Act or anywhere in the world, we'd love to have those conversations. If you're, I think that we've got brokerage and asset base, but the other thing is if you're looking for a West Coast distributor or a location where you can bring your stuff in and warehouse it, store it, and distribute from there, we'd love to chat. That's really, our website is approvedforwarders.com, fairly easy to figure out. We've just changed it, so you'll see a lot of the verbiage will talk about being Jones Act experts. But then I'm on LinkedIn, would love to chat. But that's it. Again, Brian, I'm not. I sometimes I struggle with. I don't know if we're better than anyone else. I'm talking about our competitors. I don't know if we're more innovative. I don't know if we're even a better sales team or if I'm even a better sales leader.
Right.
But what I can tell you is we're going to find out, and we're going to try to uncover whatever we can by just having a conversation, and learning more about you.
Paul Talbert, he's Vice President of Sales with Approved Freight. Paul, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being open, and thank you for being honest and sharing us about Approved Freight, but also about your career as and philosophy of sales there at Approved Freight.
You got it, Brian. Thanks for having me.
That's Paul Talbert. He's our guest on Purpose Under Pressure. And folks, now you know, I don't want to make this a commercial, but did you hear him say, what's something that you wish your current partner could do? In other words, you assume that they have a partnership, you assume that they're happy, and that's all good. And if they don't want to switch to you, that's okay. But if there's something that someone could do a little bit better, doesn't it make sense to find out and just talk? The other thing I want you to learn from Paul, if you go back to listen to this again, you'll notice that he never spent a moment saying, we're this, we're this, we're this, we're this, we're this. He asked questions. How can we help? What's going wrong? Where are the opportunities? See, that's the difference. That's how you sell. That's the way I was taught to sell. And that's the way I think Sandler helps people sell too. So that's just a little bit of me up on my soapbox, hoping that this whole sales world just gets better at what they do. So thank you very much, Paul, for being our guest on Purpose Under Pressure. And folks, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We do this every week. We do this multiple times a week. So if you will subscribe, you won't miss a show. And if you like the show, you'll be telling someone else that it's worth their time as well. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at bryanmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, developing stronger sales teams for tougher conversations. Until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, remember, you'll be okay if you stay on purpose.